Welcome to the Social Work Race. Welcome to this podcast again. It's Curtis here. And I'm giving my take of what it is like to be on the front line. I enjoy having conversations, and there will be conversations with others, guys, on the topic of social care, social services, whether you are a student, whether you're doing your ASYE, if you're a family practitioner. This is the podcast for you. Please share it. Please subscribe. Please click a bell if I can get my tongue on it. So welcome again. And today, excuse me, we are looking at a topic that was brewing all along. You may well know what this is about. It's to do with prejudice and stereotype. Prejudice and stereotypes, to be more accurate. And I wanted to start this topic with a look at, well, it's really from a personal narrative. I remember studying I did actually a diploma, and then I did my degree. In my social work diploma, we studied sociology and psychology, and those are probably two of my favorite topics in the world. They just happen to be a part of the course. And one thing that we looked at often was racism. And I thought to myself, why so much on racism? But it is what it is, right? Then when I entered to uni, we looked at racism so much. And it, interestingly, in uni, there were some disgruntled students of my cohort who felt that there was so much focus on racism when it looks at ethics and when it looks at disparity, when it looks at discrimination and prejudice. Why does racism keep coming up? This was a complaint. And I kind of saw through their eyes, which is really why I'm doing this topic, because I could see why they were frustrated. But I guess that's a part of the problem, right? Let me describe myself to you all. You probably can see my profile picture on all of these podcasts. I am a British black male of Jamaican heritage. I love it all. I grew up in the 70s, well, I was born in the 70s, and I've seen racism and I've experienced racism. Enough. Whilst living in London, which is probably the most metropolitan and cosmopolitan forward city in the country, and possibly in the world, I'm still experiencing a level of prejudice through stereotyping. This happens. I'm going to go into it because I want everyone to understand some key points on this. Whilst you're on the front line, whether you're whatever you do on the front line or in your place of work, this is really a broader topic. But let me share this experience with you. I'm not going to talk about the incidents that happened outside of my job, but I'll talk to you. To be honest with you, I've had a lot of direct, overt racism of all kinds over the 40 odd years that I've been alive, right? However, if you're in London, it's just not such a common thing to have racial, to even be prejudiced, But the thing about prejudice, you don't see it because it's not discrimination. Prejudice is what people think and believe. But let me share this with you. I remember I was working in and I just don't want to give anything away, right? but I was working in the youth offending service, and one of my colleagues, they had it was a white female. She had a young person working with. He was a black male, and she called me and asked me for advice, and felt that maybe I could do some of the work for her, which is fine. We do that sometimes. We sometimes cover each other's back in this game. Can you work with a young person for me? No problem, because you might get through. This was interesting because it rubbed me up the wrong way, but I didn't know how to handle it, right? Because, okay, let me go into it. Because as you can hear, the emotions on this side of the microphone are real right now. So she said to me, look, I reckon you'd get on with him really well. So I said, okay, what do you mean? Now, in where I was working, it was out of London. That gives it a lot of context, right? And this part of town, there aren't many black kids, although they're still overrepresented in the criminal justice system. And she said to me, I think that you'll be able to talk his language and understand him. You could give it some of that ghetto kind of. And I said, in my head, I said, what did she just say? Because when these things happen, you didn't hear it right? You don't believe you heard it. You could talk all that talk, you know what I mean? You know all that ghetto kind of talk. I've never spoken to her in my life, yeah? Now, some of you might get riled up by this, but I want to go into it a little bit. Because she was a really nice person. She thought that I would understand the urban vernacular. How was I supposed to receive that? Now, interestingly, racism, I just don't think it's a straight piece of road that we're walking on when we're talking about race. But obviously, when I come into this role, I come in with baggage because I have history. I understand why people have stereotypes. It's for no good reason, but I understand where they get it from. It's cultural, it's ignorance, right? And I found it strange because I've actually gotten jobs because I'm black. And that for me, whenever, back in the day when that happened, it was like, I wasn't as deep a thinker. I wasn't so self-aware. But I've gotten jobs because of the color of my skin and because I'm a male. And I'm asking myself, how do I feel about that? I'm asking you, how do you think I should feel about that? And how would you feel about that? I'm asking myself, then, how do service users see me? Now, I think I'm responsible, or I think it's good practice. I think it's wise of me to ask, well, how do service users see me? What do they see when I turn up at their door and I'm a black male? How do they feel? You know what's disturbing about that? What's disturbing about that is the question. Why am I asking that question in the first place? Why would I need to think about the color of my skin as I approach a family or a young person? That probably bothers me more than anything. There's more to this. And, whilst I open the can of worms, that's my intention, to open the can of worms on this topic. I'm throwing all kinds of things out there, right? Those who are listening, who are not black or probably are and have never experienced it or have, the question is what I have experienced real? Or is it a perception? Do you understand? Am I experiencing racism, or am I being oversensitive? Is it my baggage speaking? I want to put this out there as well. Because this is, for whether you're a student or whether you're a senior, advanced, this is really important to understand. I remember working in a local authority where Black Lives Matter had it was a couple of months in, after George Floyd's death, right? And the local authority I was working in decided to address it in a all lives matter kind of fashion. And the truth is, as far as I am concerned, and a lot of people who are from the similar heritage or skin color, Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter are not the same thing. And that's how they addressed it. And what was frustrating is that all of my cohort on my pay scale, say, they were all black, and the people that were managing it were all white. And to be fair to them, they won't know how to handle it. So that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I want to show you just maybe one or two things to do in practice, whether you're a manager or a social worker. I made a statement saying that not all racism is the same, and I tell you how I differentiate it. I differentiate it like this. Is the person who is saying what they're saying trying to offend me, yes or no? Are they willfully ignorant, or are they genuinely ignorant? So I'm trying to discern what is it behind it. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't piss me off any less. Do you know what I mean? It still hurts. It still frustrates. It actually doesn't really hurt. It frustrates me. That's more accurate. When I can work out the difference, that will determine my response. So going back to what this lady said, I said to her, I don't talk like that. I don't speak like these boys. I understand what they're saying, but I don't talk like them on purpose. I don't talk that language. It's another language. That is what I call their vernacular. You'd have to be around it quite a lot to get it, but I get most of it. But I don't talk like that because I think it's bad for them. It's limiting language. It's their language nonetheless, but it's limiting. And also, I don't talk like that in my personal circles so much. What makes you think that? That's the question I had for her. I wasn't in a position to address it fully, but I addressed it in a way for her to understand that actually you stereotyped me. And I don't know what the word ghetto has to do with me. But it means something to her, right? She thinks that I have some level of ghetto in me. Now, look, if you have stereotypes, I actually respect that. Everybody's entitled to their stereotypes, yeah? This is a free country. Say and think what you believe, right? But in professional practice, it lives. Now, fortunately, I work in the London borough. It lives less, but it's still there. The question is what I'm experiencing real? Did I hear that? Am I misunderstanding the situation? It's real. I work in a borough that's really quite diverse. So it's far less of an issue. But then it's more of an issue with service users. What are they thinking? How are they treating me? Some welcome me because they think I'm going to help because of the color of my skin. They think that I'm assuming they think that I'm more in touch with things that their children are in touch with. It's interesting. But this is the thing. As I walk through life, whether it's in my job or just life, I'm always thinking, what are they thinking? Is it wise for me to let go of that way of thinking? To be unaware of how I'm perceived? Can I just walk through life and not care? Actually, I prefer to know when people are being ignorant. I prefer to know when people are being intentionally racist. So I have to be aware. So that's a bag I'm carrying. It's a bag I'm carrying. I also, in the same local authority, around the same time, just a few months later, had a conversation with a white colleague of mine. Nice guy, a bit older than me. And he asked a very direct question. He says, how does the color of your skin play out whilst working with us? I was surprised by the question, but I appreciated the question. He was brave enough to ask. Is race and racism an issue for you? Now, bear in mind, I've worked in the courts as well. Excuse me. And I experienced direct and indirect racism in the courts. I would be dressed up the same. I would sit in the same area as the professionals, but I would be walked past. I'm smartly dressed. I'm wearing a suit and a tie. I'm clean shaven. But I'm not seen as a professional. Am I overreacting? I'm speaking to you all as a social worker, working in the courts, working as a social worker. Why is this in my head? I don't want anyone to feel that I haven't worked anything out. This is not the issue here. I've been conscious of this for years, since a young man. Racism and race has always been a part of my journey. I wonder what yours is. What stereotypes do you walk with, and how do you walk with them? That's a direct question out to you. Please contact me and let me know how you feel about your journey. This young man, I say young, he's young, but he's older than me. He asked me how my experience was, and I told him exactly what I've just told you. And he was hurt. But I recognized he came with a part of the solution to racism and discrimination and prejudice and stereotypes. He did something really good. Nice guy. He said to me, I just wanted to know. Because he said, I'm sure that it's not as simple as it is with me. I'm a white male. I get that there must be just some level of discrimination on your part. And I said, yes. And I gave him my story. And I said to him at the end, thanks for asking. This is a part of the solution. And it can be summarized in this: to simply ask and listen. Be brave enough to ask and be patient enough to listen. Even if you don't agree with what we're saying as a minority, perception is sometimes more powerful than truth. That's my final word today. I will be looking at race and discrimination and all types of discrimination and prejudice and stereotypes in future podcasts. Thank you for listening. I hope that you can take something from this session and live your life differently on it. Do something more. Be brave enough to ask your colleagues, how is it? How does it feel? Be brave enough to ask and be patient enough to listen. Take care of yourselves, and I hope this helps you on your journey.